Welcome to the Rise of the Trades podcast, the show dedicated to helping you to build, grow, and scale your trades or construction business. All rise for your host, Craig Wilkinson.
Welcome to another coaching episode of the Rise of the Trades podcast, where we help trades and construction business owners achieve more leads, more time, more profit, and more freedom in their businesses. In today's episode, we're going to be establishing and you're going to be creating some boundaries and rules of the game with your customers and with your team. Because if your customers own your relationship and if your team own your relationship, you are going to end up with problems as you start to scale your business. Why? Because your customers, when they are paying you, think that they own you and they own your time, which is why some of you will be getting emails and text messages and even phone calls at 9 o'clock at evening because you don't own that relationship. Or you've got employees or subcontractors where you're asking them to do certain things in your business and they're just refusing to do it. And it doesn't matter how many times you ask them to do it, they're just taking the piss and they won't do it. If this is you, you have got to establish these boundaries and rules of the game now before you scale. Because the more you scale, the more customers you take on, the more team you bring in to feed the beast you're building, the more complications and the more sleepless nights and the more stress your customers and your team are going to provide to you. Now, before we transition there, I just want to say a massive thank you to the masses and the army of fans that we are now building within the Trades Freedom Club, and particularly through this podcast, because our Facebook group is blowing up with people now starting to share their wins and their results based on what they are learning and taking action from these episodes. So you will see within our Facebook group this week, people such as Michael Russell from Russell Trades, Steve Thompson from The Boiler Doctor, Polly Shaw from Little Miss Sparky, and Steve Bartlett from SPB Heating, who have all been posting their wins, their results, and the actions that they are now taking from what they're learning from these coaching episodes. So if you're still not a member of our Trades Freedom Club, Thriving and Safe Facebook group, I would encourage you to click the link within the description of this episode and go over and join our Facebook group. Now, having been in business for over 3 decades, I've made some classic mistakes, especially in those early years, with letting my customers own my relationship and letting my team own my relationship. And the main reason why I made those mistakes is, number one, nobody had ever explained to me why I needed to establish these boundaries up front. But number two, if I'm being brutally honest, I didn't used to be a strong, firm, forceful leader. And the first thing I want you to write down in your notes is the word leader. Because as you start to scale and grow your business, the more leads you bring in, the more customers you have. The more customers you have, the more you've got to grow your team. So you've got more employees and more subcontractors working for you. And what we've now got to start focusing on is us as a leader and our leadership skills. And mine were really poor, which is why my customers used to own my relationship and why they'd be emailing me, texting me, even phoning me at 9 o'clock on a Sunday evening. And Muggins here used to answer phone because I used to think that for customer service point of view, whenever my customer said jump or whenever they needed anything, I just thought that I needed to be there at their beck and call. But when you do that, you're just opening yourself up to exploitation from your customers. Likewise with my team. I wasn't a confident person and I wasn't a confident leader. Therefore, when I was up against, let's say, stronger characters than me, whether they be employees or subcontractors, and because I didn't want confrontation, I always used to sort of like back down and brush things under the carpet and think, well, I don't want to push things too much with them because I need them. They're my team. I've got all this work on. And if I upset them and they leave, I'm going to be in shit. So therefore, again, they owned my relationship. And as you start to scale and you get more customers who own your relationship, they will have you jumping through hoops at all different times of the day. Likewise with your team, if you don't establish the boundaries with your team up front, your team are naturally going to get their feet under the table. They're going to see that you've got some weak links as a leader, and either intentionally or not intentionally, they are going to exploit them weak links. And let's just say it as it is. Your team are going to take the piss. And that's exactly what were happening with me years ago. My customers were taking advantage of me and my team were taking the piss, which led me to be constantly stressed out with my team. They weren't doing what I wanted them to do. I was asking them to do simple things and they were refusing to do it. They were taking the piss with the times they started in the morning, rocking up on jobs late, not wearing my uniform, and everything else that you'll be experiencing as well. And that has to stop, because you cannot scale a business when other people own your relationship. And when I'm talking about owning relationships, I'm on about owning your headspace. I'm on about owning your time. I'm on about owning your money. And if you do not take control back of that, your business, your customers and team will end up controlling you, and you'll feel trapped inside your own business. So by the time we get to the end of this coaching episode, I want you to acknowledge the weak links within your business. That's within yourself as a leader. That's within the weak links that you've got with your customers, or the weak links that you've got with your team, and you've got to take control back. So we're going to be speaking to you about establishing these boundaries and what I call rules of the game. And then what I want you to do is I want you to go away and start to establish what these boundaries and these rules of the game are with your team and your customers. And then we start to enforce them, not all in a wanna, because it'll be too much, but we start to drip feed these subtle changes in so you can start to take control back of your time. Now, if you stick around with me, I'm going to be sharing with you lots of one-liners and lots of little seed planters in all of these episodes. And I do this with my inner circle members, and they'll tell you they end up becoming a mini me in terms of the little one-liners that I plant into your subconscious brains. And that's exactly what I want to start off by doing right now. I want to keep planting this owning your relationships into your subconscious brain, so you're constantly thinking about owning these relationships. So let's start with relationship number 1, which are your customers. Now, I'm going to be sharing with you some of the frustrations that I used to have and that I know my inner circle members have got in terms of their customers. And I want you to be asking yourself, actually, is that me? Do I have the same problem as what Craig had and what his inner circle members have? Have I got that problem? And if the answer to any of these that I'm going to rattle off now as examples, you're saying, yeah, that's me, yeah, that's me, yeah, that's me, then clearly your customer owns your relationship. So let's start off. In the early years, I would price a job up and I would send the price over to customers, and then I get some customers coming back to me and saying things like this: Craig, thank you for your price, but we've had cheaper quotes. So if you're prepared to come down X amount of pounds, or if you're prepared to lose the VAT, and you show me a breakdown of your labour costs and your material costs, then I'll consider you for the job. So what did I used to do as a muppet years ago? I used to go, I need the job. I want the job. I want to grow my business. So what did I do? I'd go back to the customer and I'd lower my price. Or I might even see if I could lose some of the VAT. Or I'd send them a breakdown of my labour and my materials, and I'm thinking, hang on a minute, what the hell's happening here? I shouldn't be doing this, but I did it because my customers own my relationship. I'd also then send them over my terms and conditions that said that these are my interim payments. I take a deposit and I take these interim payments on the job, and then I want a final payment on this date, this time, and these are my terms and conditions. And then I used to have customers coming back to me saying, I'm not paying a deposit. All the other quotes that I've had in, nobody's asked for deposits, nobody's asked for interim payments. Do the job, finish it, and then I'll pay you. So what did Muggins here used to do? I'd say, okay then. And then what I'd end up doing is I'd end up doing it like a loft conversion at 50 grand and being terrified to ask for stage payments throughout that job, and then leaving it where I'm 20, 30 grand into the job before I plucked up enough courage to ask my customer, can I have a payment? All the risk and all the responsibility was on me and my business. Or what about your customers constantly ringing you, WhatsApping you, texting you, emailing you at evenings and weekends, and you're out with your family on a weekend on a Saturday, and then your phone rings and your customer's name pops up, and it's a Saturday and you're thinking, do I answer it? Don't I answer it? If I don't answer it, there might be a problem. So what do? You answer the phone, and then whatever the problem is or the issue is or why ever they're ringing you on a weekend, that fucks your weekend up then. You can't get it out of your head. I used to go on holiday for a week. I didn't go on holiday for more than a week. And I'd be sat round pool with my family, and my phone would be pinging, and I'd be walking round pool speaking to my customers on the phone while I were on holiday because they owned my relationship. Is any of this sounding like you? Or what about the customers that seem to expect you to be on the job all the time? And I had that. Craig, hang on a minute. You started this job. Where are you? You sent 2 lads. Who are these people? Well, they're my joiners. They work for me. Oh, hang on a minute. I were expecting you. You're the one that we've been speaking with. You're the one that came out and priced the job. You're the one that's sent us the invoices for the deposits or whatever over. We were expecting you. We want you on this job. We don't want them. It's like, what? And what about this one that I'm sure you'll all get? Whilst you're here, can you just do this? Extras. Can you just put an extra plug socket in here? Can you just move this? Can you just do that? And Muggins used to say, oh yeah, no bother, Mrs. Jones. While we're here, it's not going to take too much time to pull a few extra cables in and put you an extra double socket in. And then I got customers trying it on and wanting extras without actually having or wanting to pay for these extras. Are you with me? Now, this might be okay if you are running one job at a time. But if you can imagine having an extra 10, 20 jobs on the go now, and each one of those customers contacting you or trying to own your relationship like that, it drives you absolutely nuts. And it did with me. I didn't get any rest because my customers were always badgering me. Why? Because I wasn't a strong, confident leader and I'd not established any boundaries or any rules of the game up front on what they can and can't do. So, here's what I'm going to ask you to do. If any of this is ringing true and sounds like you, and listen, I've only come out with a couple of examples here. There's a whole host. There's probably another 20 or 30 examples I could give. I'm just using some of the ones that I know I've had and my inner circle members have when they start my program. And this has all got to stop. So here's what I want you to do next. From your past experience and your existing experience, I want you to write down all of the things that your customers do that drive you nuts, right? That seem to steal your time, or they want things for nothing, or expect you to be at their beck and call 24/7. Because That's not what you're there to do. You're running a profitable business, and therefore your customers have got to abide by a set of rules that you establish, and the boundaries are put up front to them. So number one, I need you to write down all the things that your customers do that make you feel uncomfortable, where you think they're taking the piss or liberties. Whatever it is, you've got to write it down. And then once you've written everything down, I then want you to look at each one of those issues, and I want you to ask yourself, right, what do I need to put in place? What actions do I need to take? What systems do I need to implement? What boundaries do I need to establish? How can I establish these boundaries? How and when am I going to do this in that customer journey or in that part of the sales pipeline? Where do I do all this? Because this is where I started doing this about 18 years ago, when I woke up and thought, Craig, what are you doing? You're just being a little bitch to all your customers. Man up and sort yourself out. Learn some leadership skills, become more confident, establish these boundaries, and then work out, Craig, how you're going to enforce these boundaries and rules on your customers. So I want you to do the exact same. Get a notepad, get a pen, get a tablet, write down everything that's driving you nuts, and then write down everything and the actions that you're going to take to solve that problem that you've created for yourself. So let me just give you some examples of what I've done and what I teach to my inner circle members. And this is not a comprehensive list. These are just a few examples to help you out so you understand exactly what I'm talking about and where I'm going here, okay? So let's start off with these customers that are trying to knock you down on price or want you to lose the VAT or aren't prepared to, or want you to break down your labour costs and your material costs to demonstrate to them where the profit is, right? Number one, you've got to be asking yourself, are they my target market in the first place? Because if you're attracting people to you that are like that, then they are not your target market. They are time wasters and tire kickers that are a penny pinching that want everything done yesterday for free. So I'd be saying, right, number one, you need to be identifying who your target market actually is. And also, have you got a vetting process in place? Because if you've got a vetting process in place that covers things like what's your budget and what are your time scales, we can start to wean out some of these time wasters. And then what we need to start to do is we need to start to educate and tell your potential customers how you do business. And this can be on your website. These could be infographics on your website. This could be part of your standard email template that you send out to customers, that this is how we work and this is what we do. And if anybody comes back to you saying, can you knock your price down? Can you knock the VAT off? Can you give me a labour and materials? It's no, absolutely not. That's the price. You take it or leave it. So I want you to consider target market, putting a vetting process in place and asking yourself, how and at what point can I start to educate people up front on that customer journey that these are the steps that we are going to take them through and this is how we run our business. Okay, let me give you another example. For the people and the customers that are ringing you, WhatsApping you, texting you, emailing you, calling you at all different hours, you've got to establish the boundaries on when they can and can't call you, and by what method are you going to insist that they communicate with you. So let me explain. You need to explain to all of your customers what your working hours actually are. So Mrs. Jones, our working hours are 8 while 4:30 Monday to Friday. This is the method of communication we want you to communicate with us on. Number one, this is a landline or a mobile number that's a dedicated number just for customers. Or two, If you prefer to email us, you can email us. Now, it's up to you what that method is. But for us in my businesses right now, we don't have a number because we don't want people calling us. We want people to either email us or WhatsApp us, right? So we establish them boundaries up front. And you need to be saying to your customers, these are the times when we work. Any phone calls, any emails, any text messages, any WhatsApp, any DMs on Facebook or whatever will be dealt with between 8 and 4 Monday to Friday. Anything outside of that will be dealt with the following day or on a Monday morning if you contact us over the weekend. So if you start to share with your customers that method of communication and when your office hours are open up front and you say to them nothing will get done outside of them hours, then they know. They understand up front. So yeah, they might send you a WhatsApp message at 10 o'clock at night, but please don't tell me you are giving out your personal numbers to customers. Please don't tell me your personal mobile number your customers have got, because if that's the case, they are going to own your relationship forever. It should be, if they're going to WhatsApp you, text you, direct message or whatever, it's to a works landline or a works mobile number that is switched off at 4:30 with a voicemail that says our working hours are Monday to Friday, 4:30, and any communication, any inquiries, any questions will be dealt with the following day or on a Monday morning. Okay? So we need to get that out up front. Also, how can we educate our customers on that? When do we tell them? When do we tell them all this? Because for me, there's loads of opportunities. You could give them a ring before you start a job and explain it to them. You could have a face-to-face or a Zoom meeting. All this information needs to go on your website. All this information wants to go on to a welcome introductory onboarding email to your customers. You could put this into a PDF that you turn into a brochure, which is like a project starting pack, if you like, that every customer gets. So we can reinforce all them working hours and the method of communication in many different ways to safeguard your time. Okay, what about this one? Expecting you to be on the job all the time. And some of you, as you get a growing team, this is what your customers will expect you to do. But again, you've got to establish those rules and boundaries that, yes, it might be our business, and yes, they might be the ones that they're dealing with for the survey, and it's your name on the quote, and it's your name as the business owner, but you've got a team. So what you need to do is you need to start educating and making it clear that you've got a team up front. So you can start to name drop into conversations, such as when you're doing a home survey, you could start talking about John or Alison who are part of your team and start name dropping people in. You could have your team, which you need anyway, on your website. So this is our team. This is John. He's our engineer. This is Simon. He's our apprentice. This is Jill. This is our admin person in our office. So you can start to drip feed in that you've already got a team and that you're not going to be the one that's coming out and looking at every single job, doing every single job and being there at their beck and call. Are you with me? You could also drop in there, this is how we are going to update you on a daily or weekly basis on your project. So if you're fitting a boiler, it could be at the end of the day when you're wrapping up. It could be something as simple as, we're going to send you a couple of WhatsApp messages with a photo or a video at the end of every job, just showing you your boiler's been fitted and this is how it works. Bang, there you go. If you are building an extension that's a 12-week job, it may be that at the end of each week, you do a progress report where you walk around the project or you get a team member to walk around the project, explaining to your customer what's gone off on that job this week. And then them photos or videos are dropped into something like Leadzilla, which is the portal that we use, as a membership portal for your customers to log into where they can see all the progress reports happening. But it needs establishing up front. For those people that are constantly getting hit with extras, where customers want you to do extra work while you're there, even for the customers that are prepared to pay extra for that extra work. You've got to educate them up front on any extras over and above what we've quoted for within our proposal quote or estimate are quoted as extra items and will need paying for 100% up front in full before we actually do that extra. And we want it in writing, i.e. an email or an email signature that you are accepting that extra quote. Are you with me? And when you start to put like price lists in, that's what we did with our loft conversion company. We used to give everybody a price list at the beginning of every job of all of the most popular items that customers would add on to a job, such as plug sockets, smoke alarms, upgrading their doors from white standard colonial doors to oak doors, to extra veluxes. Everything that we did, we had a price list that was presented to the customer before we started the job, and the customer was told that if you want any of these, this is how much it costs, and this is what you've got to do. This is our process that you need to follow if you want an extra item, and they paid for it in full up front. Are you with me? So everything that you've got now as a frustration, you can solve all of that by establishing a new rule, a boundary, a system, a procedure that you educate your customer up front with. So therefore, you are taking control and you are owning that relationship before you start the job. Basically, you are putting your customer with respect, and I don't mean this disrespectful, but you're putting your customer in their place that I'm going to do your job. This is how I'm going to do it. This is what we're going to follow to achieve the result that I'm going to do for you. But you've got to follow this. And if we do that, you'll start to take control back of those relationships with your customer. The phone will stop ringing. You'll be able to go on holiday for 2 weeks with your family without being badgered. You'll not be doing extras for nothing. You'll not be knocking yourself down on price because they've asked you, right? None of that will happen because you've now taken control of that relationship. So, if any of that I've just shared sounds like you, my question to you is, what is the plan moving forward? How are you going to take back control of that relationship? What are you going to implement? When are you going to implement it? I want to know. I'd love to know. So if you head over to our Facebook group and tell us in the Facebook group that you've listened to this episode, and here are the things that you believe you need to improve on as a leader, and these are the actions that I'm going to take, I'd love to hear from you. So let's now look at relationship number 2, which is the relationship that you are now going to start to own with your team, whether they be employees or subcontractors. Now, the first place we're going to start with this is this. There are only 2 reasons why you employ a team. It's very simple. The only reasons why you employ a team are for these 2 things. Write them down. Write these 2 things down. Number 1, you employ a team to make you more net profit. You employ a team to make you more net profit. And the second reason is you employ a team to reduce your working hours. In other words, you're going to delegate to your team and they're going to do the work to stop you from having to work 50, 60, 70 hours a week. Now, here's the sad reality for most people. Employing a team usually ends up with you making less profit, seriously, less profit, because you don't know the numbers in your business. And it ends up with you working more hours. Let me explain. If you start to bring in a new team, that doesn't automatically say that you're going to make more net profit. Not unless you've run the numbers and you know that by bringing this other team member in, whether that's another joiner, electrician, plasterer, plumber, whatever, or an admin person to work with you in the office, that team member is designed to make you more profit. But if you don't know the numbers and you've not run the numbers, you could well be bringing in another team member, growing your team, and you get to the end of that year and you look at your accounts and you go, well, hang on a minute, I've turned over an extra 500 grand, but I've only made an extra 20 grand. What were the point in that? Or second, you bring in a team, and because you've got no systems in place to run the business through, you're now having to do twice as much communication with customers, twice as many invoices, twice as many jobs to look at, twice as many quotes to get out, twice as many materials to order, twice as much labour to sort out, twice as many customers to deal with. So your working hours go up because you haven't got the systems in place to bring your working hours down. So what you think is growing your business by taking on another apprentice or whatever it is you're going to do, you think you're going to make more money and it's going to save you time. It has the opposite effect. There's not many people that I know that brings in a team and immediately that team make profit and save them time because they don't know the numbers and they haven't got the systems in place to cope. Are you with me? So if you've employed a team and you are not significantly increasing your net profit margins and your working hours aren't significantly coming down, that says to me that there's something wrong with that team in your business, or there's something that you're lacking in your business that's preventing you from making more money and working less hours. Now, here's what generally happens when you bring in another team member, and let's just use another tradesperson, someone who's going to be working on one of your jobs. Here's what generally happens. They start off with all good intentions. And they're coming on time, they're grafting, they're getting stuck in, they're polite with your customers, they're being polite to you, they're respecting you and all that jazz. But at some point, if you do not own that relationship, something's going to change. And what starts to change is they get their feet firmly under that table. And they're looking at you as a leader and looking at how other people or other members of staff are getting away with blue murder. And they're thinking, I'm going to do exactly the same. If they're doing it and they're getting away with it, then I'm going to start to do it as well. And there's an old saying that monkey see, monkey do, right? And that is if your team can start to see things aren't working right and there's an exploitation to take advantage of. I'm not saying naturally they sit there and highlight these areas, but they can see where you're weak and they can see what your other team members are getting away with. So monkey see, monkey do, they're going to do exactly the same. So what happens is they get the feet under the table and then their work ethic starts to change. Something starts to drop off. And they start to make mistakes and things start to creep in that drive you nuts. Now, let me just share with you, when I was a weak leader and this were happening in my business, let me share with you some of the frustrations that I used to have. And again, as I'm giving you some of these examples, any of these ring true in your business, then you do not own that relationship. Because if you did, none of what I'm going to share with you now would be happening. And again, this is not the full comprehensive list. These are just a few examples that I know I had, that some of my inner circle members had, and I know for sure that some of you listening to this, you will have exactly the same, and it's got to stop. So, here's what started to happen. Number one, the standard of workmanship started to drop. Little mistakes and little things you started to creep in. And these standards of workmanship weren't at my level. And we were going back doing snagging lists and things like that we never used to do before. Bits of silicone missing, screws in hinges missing, cracks starting to appear in plaster, all that type of things, right? The workmanship started to drop. My team started turning up on jobs not wearing the uniform that I provided for them. So all my team used to get boots, Snickers work trousers, branded polos, hoodies, jumpers, beanie hats, the whole shebang. And all of a sudden it started creeping in where they start coming in joggy bottoms, or they start coming in a past employer's branded top, or they come in a Nike or an Adidas t-shirt, and that wasn't acceptable. But because I weren't a strong leader, and because I was so busy and I felt like I needed them, I turned a blind eye to it. Then I used to start having people knocking on a Monday morning. I used to hate Mondays because I got a big team at this point. I got 20 odd people working for me. So you have one or two people knock on a Monday morning and it throws the entire week out. And then you've got to sort your calendar out and start speaking to customers and making excuses and putting jobs back and putting deliveries back on materials that were supposed to be delivered that day. Are you with me? So Monday mornings, they go out, let's say on a weekend, have a good gargle on a weekend, which I've got no problem with that. But if it starts affecting their performance by not turning in on a Monday, and then I just get text messages saying, oh, I feel like crap, I'm not coming in today, Craig. And I go, okay then. Okay, don't worry. Hope you feel better later. What a muppet I used to be. And then turning up on jobs late. So I'd say to a customer, look, John, as an example, is going to be on your job for 8 o'clock, right? 9 o'clock, phone will ring. Be Mrs. Jones. Craig, John's not turned up yet. Where is he? And I'd ring him and go, John, where are you? Oh, I'm still in Builders Merchants. Yeah, tossing it off, having a cup of coffee from coffee machine, speaking to all his pals and sales reps down there. Yeah, turning up late on jobs. Or what about this one? Why does it take 3 people to jump into a van to go to a sandwich shop in the morning to get a sandwich and be gone half an hour when they only have a 15-minute break? Or every time I attempt to rock up on a job around lunchtime, everybody would be sat down. And it'd be, oh, we've only just sat down. I'd be, oh, that old chestnut, is it? So breaks started to extend. What about people playing on the phones? I mean, thankfully, mobile phones weren't around as they are now with all the apps on back then, before I sold my business. But God, it must drive you a lot nuts, because I'm guessing some at younger generation are too busy dicking about on TikTok or Snapchat or Instagram playing flipping Candy Crush when they should be actually working. What about those that can't make a decision? They can't make a decision on one of your jobs. They've got no common sense. So what happens? Your phone blows up every day with grown-ass adults ringing you with stupid things like this. Craig, yeah, what's up? I've run out of timber. What do you mean you've run out of timber? You're putting a roof on. You've run out of timber? Yeah, we ran out of timber yesterday afternoon. Well, why didn't you tell me when you got 10 lengths of timber left? Why wait until it's run out and wait till the following day before you tell me we've got no timber to put a roof on? Crazy. Just no common sense. And ringing you constantly for stupid decisions that they could make themselves, but they won't make them because you're babysitting grown-ass adults. What about refusing to use systems or software that you're now starting to provide them with? Such as things like maybe ServiceMate or Commusoft or Tradify or Leadzilla or any of these apps or tools that we are now starting to use to run our job management of the business, and you just want your team to use the app. But for some reason, they can't use the app. They refuse to use it. You want them to take photos at the end of every day and upload them into an app. Or you just want them to take photos and WhatsApp you so you can share it on social media. And they forget to do it. It's like, come on. It's like pulling teeth. Or what about the, pardon my French, fuck it attitude that this generation seems to have now got? You know, the construction industry as a whole has always been a little bit slower to come forward with technology and the way in which we do things. And it breeds, there's a lot of unprofessional, semi-skilled tradesmen in our industries, yeah? And a lot of them have got this fuck it attitude. Fuck it, it's not my problem, it's not my job, it's not my customer. It's like, come on. And then you get these people that are just literally turning up each day or each week, and you know that they're just rocking up for a wage. They don't really give a crap about you. They don't give a crap about your business. They don't want to see you succeed. They're just rocking up for their own benefit and their own wages. Well, I don't know about you, but I don't want people working for me like that ever again. I used to, years ago, and I used to put my head under the carpet and bury it, and this used to go off. But again, because I weren't a strong leader and I didn't want confrontation, I didn't have that natural leadership skill inside me, so I let it go. But all I'm doing here is now I'm creating a rod for my own back. Are you with me? So, I want you to think about what I've just said. And I know for sure there'll be certain things that I've just mentioned that's going off in your business. If that's the case, you do not own that relationship. You've got to put it right. So the same thing I want you to do again. I want you to get 2 pieces of paper or open 2 pages on your tablet. And here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to ask you to write down all of the things that you do not want your team to do. These are all the things that you cannot do in my business. I don't want you to do these. But on the other page, I want you to write down all the things that you are expecting them to do and you do want them to do in your business. Because they are not mind readers. They do not understand what you want them to do or don't want them to do if you haven't explained it to them. How are they supposed to know? And many of these people that you may be employing or subbies that you bring in have all got different work ethics, different values, different morals, different standards of workmanship and communication. And they've worked with people in the past that have let them get away with all this. And you're bringing them to your business and you're not explaining them what the rules of your game is, and you're letting them loose inside your business without having this conversation with them. That's like them walking around in your business with a hand grenade. And at any one point, they can pull that pin out of that hand grenade, and when they do, it equals grief and problems, and usually lost money and lost time by their actions. So they're not mind readers. A strong, good leader will establish these rules of the game on any member of their team. The day they walk into their business, you'll sit down and run through all these rules. And if we do that in a professional, firm and friendly manner, all of a sudden, we start to get all the people that are working with us and for us singing from the same hymn sheet. Are you with me? And then if Fred joins your business as a heating engineer, and you've already got 5 or 6 heating engineers in your business that are abiding by all these rules and are abiding by these boundaries that you've set. When you bring the new guy in, it's monkey see, monkey do. He sees everybody else sticking to these rules, so therefore they're going to stick to the rules. But it's when you've got no rules in place whatsoever and they're second guessing what you are expecting of them that you start to get problems. So I want you to write down, here are all the things that you're expecting them to do and you want them to do in your business, such as if you want them to take photos or videos at the end of every job to send to you for social media content, then they've got to do it. That needs to be explained on morning 1 when they start with you. If you want your van to be kept clean and racked out in the back and washed every 2 weeks by a member of your team because they're using your van, then that needs to be explained to them. But likewise, if you don't want your van looking like a skip and you open back doors and they've just thrown everything in back, which drives me mad. If you don't want that and you don't want them driving round with McDonald's cups and Costa coffee cups and delivery tickets and newspapers rammed on your dashboard that looks unprofessional, if you don't want that to happen, you've got to explain that you can't do this. Or otherwise, they'll do it because they've picked up bad habits and bad workmanship and bad standards and values and morals over the years that they are now bringing to your business. And they cannot cross that line and walk onto that pitch to win the game, in your case, the game of business. They can't do that unless you establish what the rules of the game are up front. So what actions are you now going to take, number one, towards taking back control and owning the relationship with your customers? And number two, what actions are you going to do now to take back control and own the relationships with your employees or your subcontractors? Now, this is not easy to do. It's easy for the people that are confident, that don't mind standing up and bringing these new rules into play and aren't affected by confrontation, because some of you might get confrontation. It's going to be fairly easy for them, but for people like me back in the day that were absolutely terrified of bringing these rules in, it took me some time to build up encouragement to be able to do it. But when I started to do it and I started to see things change, i.e., customers abiding by my boundaries and my team starting to come with my uniform on, with my team starting to arrive on time for jobs, with my team starting to communicate better with my customers. When I started to see it working, it gave me more confidence to continue to do it. And over a period of time, I completely changed the relationship with my customers and I changed the relationship with my team. And for the last, what I'm guessing has got to be 18 years, I own all relationships. Nobody listening to this podcast will ever own my relationship. And I don't say that to be Billy Big Balls, because I'm not. It's just that I'm confident that anybody that works with me, in any of my 4 businesses, any of our staff or members or employees, anybody or freelancers, anybody that works for me, I own the relationship in a respectable, professional manner. Not in an egotistical way, not in a Billy Big Balls way, none of that. That's not me. But I own that relationship because I know that by owning relationships and by having a team, they are designed to make me more profit and for me to work less hours. And as long as I'm in control of my time and money, and I'm in control of those relationships, I'm in control of everything that happens in my business, which means I can sleep at night, I could go on holiday for a month next week and not deal with any phone calls or emails, because I've got the systems and I've got the team in place to be able to deal with that for me. So, as a reminder, if you could head over to our Facebook group, the link to the group is in the description around this episode. Tell us that you've listened to podcast number 8 and what actions are you now going to take to reclaim and take back control of your relationships with your customers and your team. Final thing, I'd really appreciate it if you are getting value from these free coaching episodes. If you could leave us a review on the podcast platform that you're listening to this on, because the more reviews we can get, the more the platform will push our episodes out, and the more it pushes it out, the more tradesmen and women we can help build a better quality of life. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch up with you on next week's episode. Thank you.